Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining me during these troubling times, with protests and police tarnishing their reputation, once again treating protesters like fugitives that had escaped prison. They were given water to drink out of a bucket and trapped against their will. This is disgraceful. We're talking about grandmas, families, and good-hearted citizens. How they can get away with this is completely unimaginable. Reports of police after the fact reflecting on their behaviour and feeling very shameful. I hope given time they can think about their actions and consider a different occupation. We will be covering the current crisis, the US election, and much more with our guest. So let's go to the interview now. So joining me once again is Robert Deutsch. It seems like every time we communicate, there's always a disaster that we're faced with, whether it's bushfires, medical emergencies, or rigged elections. It never seems to end. How are you managing over there with your current situation?
It's about like everybody else. I'm surviving. It's about day to day, electricity, even just to get a meal. But I had some donations and some help. Some people don't know it. I got stranded outside of Turkey due to the COVID-19 forced me to not be able to leave. The country closed. There was no flights. I had 3 flights canceled. I planned to leave, but they won't let me back in without a consulate visa. To get that, I have to go to a country of residence. I have residence here in England, so I came here as quickest. And I had to get documents sent here. When I got all those, now it's money and the embassy's reopening that I need. So I've applied for a STIMI check, but that could take a month or so to get here. It looks like it was accepted. So that'll be some relief. That'll be a huge relief, actually, because through great kindness, I have a place to stay. And they're not charging me a whole lot of rent, just a little bit. And I have to just pay for the utilities and keep the place clean. Yeah. Which is easy for me. Anybody who knows me, I'm a big clean.
Yeah, we have to be grateful for small blessings, a roof over our heads, hang on to what we have and cherish even the smallest of mercies. Now, an offshoot of problems from this COVID crisis, the restriction of people's movement, their freedoms being denied, trying to travel to meet loved ones, so many hurdles that we have to jump. And, what we're stuck in right now is very tumultuous times. What's your thoughts on this rigged election that's now been put into play? It seems like a lot of voters, they support Trump, but their decisions and their vote was denied. And it seems like Biden's been put in place. Now, this is going to be disastrous, the consequences that this will have on humanity, won't it?
I got to say, I've been a voter myself in the past. I'm 56 years old. And in all my years, voting has never fixed what the previous people voted in have done. It's never fixed anything. Yeah, it does look like there are circumstances surrounding this election that are fishy. And the vote count seems statistically impossible, improbable, highly improbable. I'm trying to use bold language. Look, they're trying to steal the elections. The Democrats want things aimed towards their point of view, and their point of view is a communist Chinese world. And I don't accept that. I could accept if he won president fair and square, but if when you shut down the vote countings, and then at 4 a.m., 100,000 plus votes show up in 2 different states at the same time, and all of them pretty much are for Biden, I say that's fishy. When information about the Hammer program from the CIA made a computer that could meddle with elections, basically, in other spying ways. And this computer program can do many things, and it had apps that run on it, and one of them was called Scorecard. And Scorecard could actually channel 3%. It was programmed to channel 3% of a vote to whoever you said. So take that 3% and stick them with those ballots, and you've got the recipe for a court case, I think. It's got to be challenged. It's not the first time in history that the press has declared a winner that wasn't in the presidential race. I can go back to Truman versus Dewey Eisenhower. You know, the newspapers all reported that Eisenhower had won, but Truman had won. And people even reported Al Gore had won when Bush ended up winning it. So hold your breath, people. It's going to be a bumpy ride. It's going to be, for lack of a better word, it's a shit show. It really is. It's showing the nastiness of an election, the greed of the power. It vindicates all the stuff people like you and I have been saying for a very long time about this voting system. Vote really doesn't matter.
That's absolutely right. There's many suspicious circumstances surrounding this election, and I have many people contacting the show. They're all in support of Trump, his initiatives, and what's been accomplished. And you see the voter turnouts, massive crowd gatherings. And when you see Biden, the social distancing that he's put on his followers, it just doesn't seem to add up. When you see the amount of respect that comes Trump's way, and then when you see it all come into place, it is obvious, even to people that are foreign and aren't US citizens, they can even see that it's very suspect. And yeah, there needs to be a recount, and it definitely looks like it's going to go to the Supreme Court. That seems to be a plausible scenario that we might see play out, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a lot of rumors going around about the marking of the ballots and secure ballots. And that's very true. They do mark ballots. I know that Homeland Security supplied all the ballots for this election. Whether if I'd wanted one over here in England where I am, they would have mailed me one. It would have been a Homeland Security ballot. So what I'm thinking is that legitimate ballots got funneled into the Democrats from Homeland Security, from an inside source, so that he's going to have to rely on this computer program and the illegalities of not allowing counters to sit in, witnesses to watch the counts and verify things and other things like that. Or an actual physical count where you're actually checking each voter. You know, I could check if I voted. I checked in Michigan. Supposedly I voted. I'm serious. I checked back to go to screenshot it last night. It had been removed. So the word's getting out. I asked people to go check. So there's a lot of deceit, lies, in high treason being committed on the week of Guy Fawkes's commemoration of gunpowder treason and plot. Now we have voting machines, mail stamps in plot.
And a big concern, what we see, there needs to be procedures put in place that ensure the ethical standards are kept in the highest regard when it comes down to voting. People need to be held accountable for anything that seems to be corrupt. And we have the Hunter Biden computer that was full of evidence, and it seems the computer store owner made sure he kept a second hard drive and made multiple copies. So much evidence that's being brought to light, methamphetamine use and more. And then when you have this Biden, you see some of the sexual perversion and some of the claims coming out. It's beyond belief that he was even an acceptable candidate to begin with.
The behavior of the not releasing the laptop as soon as you knew you had the information, to me, is a bit wrong. You know, how many more children got abused in this system of terribleness is that the behavior of some of these people that are supposed to be morally setting the peer, they're morally bankrupt, but they're supposed to set what a peer is. They're supposed to be role models, and this is how they're behaving. But they held it for political gain. How many more children got abused? This is, to me, it bothers me. It just does. It's not fair, not nice. This whole election is a smirk, an actual smirk mark on the democratic process itself. The USA who lords over so many elections around this planet has to have a higher standard for their own election. They have to have great clarity of what's going on, more than any other country. Or who the hell are they to ever again judge another election somewhere else? If this is what they can't, if you don't cut your own grass in your backyard, don't you dare tell me my lawn needs cutting. That's kind of how I look at it. And right now, I see a lawn needs some serious cutting.
Absolutely.
Maybe the sheep will go over there and eat it. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Maybe the sheep will go over there and eat it. I don't know.
This Biden crime syndicate deserves serious jail time. And what we can see play out is the New World police state, martial law, the New World agenda. It's all going to be rolled out now at full speed with this crime powerhouse in control. And this is the time where we're going to see many people that have been making preparations implement some of these strategies and try and evacuate large city areas and get to their bug out locations, because the wrath that this Biden will commit, there's no telling just how much devastation lies ahead of us, is there?
I don't know. With the goal toward having smart cities, I don't think destroying a huge city is what they're after. They more want to get you burn you out of your farms, flood you out of your land, make sure your cattle that you've had for maybe 100 years in your family, they all die, you don't have anything, and you owe the bank on the way out the door, right? So you're indebted, you'll go into the slave city, you'll take the whatever job they tell you to go do every day for X amount of hours, so you get the credits on your digital account that's going to be well, they're going to the digital accounts in the United States. All U.S. banks, as of January 1st this year, like New Year's Day, they have to have created and facilitate digital wallets inside the bank. So they're going to switch over to a digital currency, and the currency is going to be controlled by the Fed. It's not going to be the Bitcoin or any of these blockchain type things we was all wondering. So if you holding any of that, you might want bail. Now here's your warning. You got 2 months. I said something, so I won't feel so bad. I'll feel bad if you get ripped off by the Fed system, but that's how that's going. These agreements have already been signed, and there's a lot of other agreements that are going to come into play on January 1st, and I'm going to do more about that in the coming weeks. I do the Red Pill Hardcore radio show coming out of Austin, Texas, 4 days a week. At 10 o'clock Central Time, Monday through Thursday in the United States. So we cover a lot of these issues in the United States. So it leaves me a lot of homework. Puts me at a bit of a disadvantage only having a phone. I don't have Wi-Fi because I have a tablet that I cannot use. So, I do have some things that if I don't have Wi-Fi, I can't use it. So it's limiting me a bit, but I remember very well things, so I could still talk about these topics. And talking about this election has been pretty nonstop now for many days. We did a show the other day about child protection services and stuff and perversions in schools, just to get off this topic, because it can be all consuming and very depressing. Because right now it is a waiting game. There's going to be a lot of wild ass guessing going on. There's going to be the Q movement people going to see every word said as a fulfillment of prophecy. And me, I'm just watching. I'm like, if they've got this isotope on the ballots and they're not on the other ones, it's a checkmate. But they seem to be they're forgetting how deep the deep state is into even Homeland Securities, who set up the FEMA camps and run all these. Halliburton's all intertwined in these agencies of the government. And they seem to forget it's possible. They got handed a whole bunch of ballots. So come on, think, people.
Exactly.
He's got to get them on the other legals.
The American people must feel robbed at the moment and losing all faith in democracy.
Half of them. Yeah. And there's a lot of gloating, which isn't very nice right now. It's really, especially if you're in the truth movement and Donald Trump doesn't make it into the White House. Don't be going on a guy's walls to say, ha ha, you've been wrong as shit. Look, he knows it, okay? This is a truth movement guy, and he didn't believe mainstream, and he went along with the narrative he believed in and gave him hope. So please, people, play nice after this. We've all got to live here after the mess they made up.
Yes, that's all right. The last thing we need is people feuding and adding more fuel to the fire. That's going to result in a more negative outcome. People are vigilant and fixated on what's going to transpire and losing all faith in democracy when you have people high up in politics and they're taking oaths to Freemasonry. It corrupts the whole system, and the way it's structured, it's designed to fail, isn't it?
No, it's designed to do exactly what it's doing. Pit us against each other, keep us fighting each other, keep us in fear. Fear is a great control method. Even now, just people think, oh, we're all going to die if Trump wins. Oh, Biden eats children. The fear factors being spread to both sides right now are just pure propaganda. It's this textbook, Goebbels textbook.
And then we have the threat of the vaccine looming, with the new vaccine timeline being given, and they're pushing for a 95% mandate. So everybody will be hit by this, and very few will manage to escape unaffected. Have you got any strategies in place?
It's a very scary proposition, Jeff, because some of the information came out that 70% of the second largest shipping company in Europe's fleet has been reserved for the distribution of the vaccine when it comes out. 70%. So that's telling me they're going to roll this everywhere the same day, all at once. Maybe there'll be real problems with social media that day, so we can't communicate. Because as people start dropping like flies all over the place, they can't have it happen one day here and we hear about it. It's got to come all at once, and it's a fear of mine. So there's no way they could do everybody all at once. So the initial sheep, mask, the first people with the mask, the Karens, they're going to be standing in line first, right? They're going to drop like flies, doing my planet a great favor by exiting their ignorance off my planet. But we got to be watching for this. There might be a couple weeks where they're going to do everybody they see out there, and they're going to mark them somehow, whether it's a card, whether it's that luciferase digital tattoo that I fear that we're going to get. And I do fear it because I know what it can be used for. So we have to stay home. We have to stay in the house. We don't be out on the street getting it until it's noticed that people are dying, that children is within hours are dead from these shots, and there'll be no denying it. They'll have to stop giving it. The order's already been paid for. I don't think the pharmaceutical industry will be too angry because it's already been paid for. They got their fucking sludge money, the sick bastards, on the heels of death. On the pale horse they ride. And upon the horse was a vaccine needle. His name was Pestilence. So no other ways I see these things, and that's to me is, if I was them, that's what I'd do, because it's going to be too visible. There's just no way. Or they're going to keep us in lockdown at least another year, if not, to go through some semblance of safety study that to reassure the public. But even then, when they roll it out, we're going to have to be on our back heel. They might have already chipped us by then. They really might. They might inch it with COVID testing first, vaccine later. How do you prove you've been tested? So you've been a good boy. You can go in public and sit on the park bench again, You will have access to the litter box and throw your trash away again if you're a good boy and you toxify your body. So it's go along with the agenda. So this constant re-locking down is just a reaffirmation of state control, cut and dry. Liverpool's locked down. They've got 2,000 soldiers stationed here, and their goal is to test everybody in the whole city. Is Robert going out? Unless I have to go to that corner store right there, and I can see from here, I ain't going nowhere. And the internet will be a buzz. Hey, there's blah, blah, roadblock here, they're stopping, blah, blah, helicopters here, blah, blah. Just stay home. We have the ability to stay home for a bit. I don't see us beating the initial agenda because it's already done and dust. But we can protect ourselves until the outcry. It becomes so great that it stops.
So what would be your advice to people in these current times that are suffering from paranoia. They're anxious about the future and what it holds.
Just, you got to take care of yourself, right? There's the things you're going to need. Do you have food to eat? Do you have the ability to make clean water? Do you have books to read? Because be prepared to stay in the house when the vaccine comes out. Be prepared to stay in the house until the bodies pile up, and they're going to pile up. It's going to be undeniable. They might try to blame a super strain of COVID at the time. They'll come up with something to blame it on beside themselves. They always do. You know, how much flu could a flu shot stop if a flu shot could stop flu? You know, I want that on a T-shirt very badly. But it's
well said. That's a tongue twister, that one. But yes, because that's what we're going to see, this impending doom. It's going to be an ultimatum. Take the shot or your access to employment will be denied. No longer being able to frequent shopping centres or places where large crowds will be held. Transport will be denied, and so many people impacted because of this. What alternatives can one put in place to prevent such tyranny? I mean, it seems like the only option is to try and relocate and become self-sufficient. That's what we always draw to.
People thought they'd do that in the United States some years ago, and they made it illegal to be off-grid. You had to hook up, no matter where you were. Yeah, well, it isn't a matter of us moving away. It's a matter of moving them out.
Yeah, exactly. This whole
pitchforks and torches, remember? The English castles had longbows, crossbows, all trebuchets and all that. Pitchforks and dang torches could do a lot.
And now the new criminal agenda put in place, it's to restrict farming. And a lot of people are hit with this. Anyone growing produce and that is self-sufficient is being labelled as a agricultural terrorist. So that's how that's being drawn out. We're seeing that in New Zealand as well. So it's horrifying.
They got geoengineering to destroy your garden. They can let you buy all the herbicides, fungicides, pesticides, everything for your garden, and hopefully you're not using any of those sides. You know, if you got weeds, vinegar, salt, and water, a drop of soap will do a great job. So, but yeah, they're controlling the food supply. Control the food supply. Control the access to goods. How you can trade, and you really control the people. You control their food supply. Water is another great one, and fear. If I could get you afraid, you'll run right where I want you to. Even when the dog on the outside of the sheep could move them anywhere he wants, and he doesn't even have to get close. After he only has to nip one or two of them in the butt before the word gets around, you know, to the other sheep to stay away from this dog. And that's what we're doing. We're running from the dog rather than seeing that, hey, if we stampeded the dog, that dog will run from us. And I think it's time we take control of the pasture.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. And take control over one's health and well-being and stop leaving it in the hands of these doctors who should be responsible for malpractice and what's taking place. And you see the way it's geared. When you go to a pharmacy, there could be some very good home remedies, but they won't tell you about it because they can't profit from it. And you see a lot of the holistic healers are being punished as well. So the way it's structured, it's very deceitful, and people's health is suffering as a consequence, isn't it?
You have to pay too much for something. That's money might not have for heat for your house. You might have to pick between your insulin and feeding your child. You're going to feed your child because you'd rather die than see them suffer, wouldn't you? There was times when money was tight in my house, and I would lie and say I ate before you got home, and I made sure he had a big plate of food. My lad would always eat. But we gotta feed the world now. It's time, and people need to play nice about this and realize whether you believe in Q or not, don't get on these people too much because they want the same thing you do. They want fairness and all that. Okay, it's not looking too good for some of their prophecies. All right, but I need them to help fight other issues. Find your common ground with these people. If they're your best friend, you razz them a little bit. But remember, this is Facebook. We don't need to be blocking each other. I could see they set it up that no matter what, there's going to be dissent in the United States for the next 4 years, no matter what. The other side's never going to be happy with the outcome.
Yeah.
You know, when CNN says one thing and the court says another, that's what we'll have to go by. Until this election is certified, we're going to have a lot of talking about rumors and this and that. But at the end of the day, it took George Bush 37 days to get that election declared for him against Al Gore. This is nothing unusual. This is the democratic process. And sadly, election fraud is nothing new. Yeah. This time it looks like they busted him.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is, election fraud. And when you see the state of health of this Biden, he seems to be suffering from onset dementia. A lot of his decision-making skills are compromised, and some of the statements that he makes are very much incoherent. It's suggested what's going to take place is his health will suffer, and ultimately Harris will take over, and she will become president.
That's proposed. But the Democratic Party itself can appoint the president in such a case. It's not a guaranteed, especially if it happens before he's sworn in. It's not a guaranteed line of succession. But after he's sworn in, you know, we often theorize that, or I'm leaning more toward the body double, filling in, acting like, you know, Scarecrow Biden, like the one that had the mask that was coming off the neck in the pictures, if that's a legitimate picture. Yeah. But, you know, the possibility of that is easy to do nowadays with Hollywood makeup has come a long way, you know, from blowing people's arms off and making it look real so they could show you a false flag that happened somewhere. I mean, it's like Boston bombing or all sorts of fakery.
That's a fantastic point you raised. Some of the special effects and the Hollywood makeup artists, the masks that are available now, people wouldn't be able to distinguish whether that is the exact person or are they wearing a mask. So is this how it's being rolled out? Is there an imposter that's been put before the public on many occasions?
I think so. There was also, you know, the thing between the red tie and the blue tie Trump. It seems to be two very distinct facial differences. You know, the ears and things like that are just a bit different between the two. But it's kind of common to use doubles. And famous people do it on rock and roll tours all the time. I met a guy in Flint, Michigan that was Ozzy Osbourne's body double. Wherever Ozzy toured America, this guy would go out the front door while Ozzy went out the back. He was loving life too. Tell you some of the stories he would tell me. He was very convincing. Yeah, but yeah, it's par for the course. It's all media now. Media can even put like those Snapchat type filters people use can be done live on things just to turn your face into whoever they want. They can animate anybody. Well, come on, you can't not campaign nearly for 2 weeks at the end of an election and come up with such a result. Don't do this from the basement. It just.
But I guess he does a lot of his work in the basement.
No.
The reputation that he's garnered as this creepy Joe Biden is what they call him, rubbing, sniffing, and other sexually perverted practices that he has been caught red-handed committing. And the way that he's been accepted to rise to these ranks, it's hard to imagine that this could happen. And if that's what he's willing to do in front of cameras, what is he doing behind closed doors? One could only imagine.
To imagine. Some of the stuff I've seen from the Biden laptops it makes me feel physically sick. Physically sick. I wouldn't recommend anybody watch it. Just take our word for it. It's vile. It just damages you to even think that people would do stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very deceitful, and we can see a lot of celebrities, you know, surely they must know right from wrong, and when it comes down to supporting these predators, one could draw a link that would be plausible. They must be compromised in some regard to support such crime.
Yes, I think they got leverage. Somebody recorded them doing that. Maybe Biden, because Biden's got his own island over there. It's 5 miles away from Epstein Island. Maybe, you know, he's also been recording people for leverage, you know, setting them up with underage prostitutes and they're doing ungodly things and getting recorded. And then you tell them later on, no, I've got this on everybody here. Support me for president.
That's right. Exactly. He deserves to be in prison. None of this makes any sense to the public, and a lot of people are shaking their heads in disgust when it comes down to the perversion that's put in place. And that lady Gaga, she seems to be supporting this Biden with all of her resources being put towards this, and it's just disgraceful. And the level of disgust that people have when they see some of the rituals being performed, Marina Abramovic, some of these ceremonies that they label as art and live art.
Labeled as halftime shows.
Yes.
You know, music, video things. You see like Madonna's video at the Eurovision, which pretty much portrayed the COVID outbreak, and people dropped. And you have so many satanic things. You know, the whole Baal worship of it all, the look of the pentagram devil go even in the clothing that's being worn, and the open flashing of not the rock on horns, but the one where you do it like that.
Yeah.
You know, that's a little bit different.
Exactly right. And you mentioned the halftime ceremonies. These are all satanic rituals conducted in plain sight. And we've seen it with the Olympics as well, pushing the corona theme with the nurses coming out. They love to do this. They put it in plain sight right before our very own eyes. So people need to connect the dots and wake up to this.
They say that that part of the Olympic Open and ceremonies you referred to was supposed to be about British literature. You know, they had the Peter Pan, and they had Dickens, and then they did Harry Potter, and that was the big Voldemort in the hospital beds. In hindsight, when you look back at it, you go, they were telling it. They were telling their script.
They certainly are. And for the people that are switched on and educated, they can start to really see between the lines and read what's going on. It's very concerning, to say the least. It's all symbolism hidden in plain sight and very alarming all through the Hollywood movies. And we've seen Bill Gates, and when he said the second wave, that will really get their attention. So the cat's out of the bag.
He was grinning like the Cheshire Cat.
And it'll really get their attention. And we'll just take that vaccine and we'll just shove it right in their veins. This is a very sick man.
I really, that's a person that I think he's unrehabilitatable.
Yes, a war criminal, and also needs to be charged with conspiracy to commit mass murder through the vaccination program. And being linked in with Planned Parenthood, they have one goal, and that's depopulation. And they are hell-bent on accomplishing this goal. Rockefellers, Rothschilds, they put the plans in place, and they ensure that they're implemented. Every step necessary. And we see at the Denver airport, you must have seen all the murals through there. We have people wearing gas masks with swords stabbing doves. And then they took some of the murals away because it was too revealing.
They're redoing that terminal. When I went through Denver Airport last year, they would cover it up. They were actually redoing the whole terminal, so maybe they got new pictures. They're going to give us another chapter in the book. I know I'm grinning about it, but you know, it's so in our faces, obvious for those that can see the signs of the times, and the people that can't see the signs are going to be a victim of the times. January 1st is a big day. Everybody look into Nesara and Gesara. Nesara, Gesara. It's about a lot of the global money stuff where you think you're having this gold-backed currency is going to be such a great thing. It's going to be the new Ponzi. They're going to take all the precious metals and they're going to say, we have them all here. Look, here's a picture of them. And you're going to believe it's there. It's just going to be business as usual, not even having petroleum to back up a U.S. dollar. So be vigilant, folks. So if you're holding these hard metals, look at the prices of some of the stuff now. Take your money while you can. Because when the time comes for them to pay you out in credits for your precious metals, your value won't be as good. They never pay you what your house is worth when they buy you out, do they? So the railroad could come through, just as an example. So we have to be vigilant now. Watch your investment. Make sure you got food. Food for, I'd say, 2 years worth of beans, rice, flours, and basics is appropriate for when the shortages really come to light, because the destroyed crops from the geoengineering around the planet.
Yes.
And fire, vandalism and fires at the processing plants, and the targeting of the people that pick the crops through COVID measures, so that they were too afraid to get tested and quarantined, so they just left. They've chosen not to pick your crops. So we have to realize that there's a problem. There's a big elephant in the room. He's really big.
I'm actually in a really bad position here. I'm caught unprepared. I don't have the ability to buy a year's worth of food. I had the ability to buy 3 days worth of food, and then I'll turn it into try to make it last 4. This is my situation. So I'm in where the state wants me, where I'm right to have to depend on the state itself for sustenance. And that's a huge control method for them, isn't it?
It certainly is. Many people are only one paycheck away from disaster. Well, look, there are very unsettling times ahead. Let's hope we can manage and continue to get the information out, fight for freedom, and support all the initiatives that will help us rise above. Well, thank you very much for appearing on the program. Let's hope we can have a happy Christmas to some degree and a happy new year as well. Thanks again. Well, thank you very much once again for joining me. I hope the information was of immense value. Be sure to like, share and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, consider becoming a patron or making a donation. It's with your support that helps this operation continue. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next episode of the We Are Change talk show, where we expose corruption one episode at a time.